What if I told you that Canada's seemingly unstoppable housing market is about to face its biggest reckoning in decades? While most homeowners are celebrating their paper wealth, smart money is quietly preparing for what could be the most dramatic price corrections we've seen since the 1990s. The warning signs are flashing red across multiple cities, and if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, the next 20 minutes could save you from making a catastrophic financial mistake. The Canadian housing bubble has reached unsustainable heights, with average prices increasing over 300% in some markets over the past 2 decades. But economic fundamentals, rising interest rates, and demographic shifts are creating a perfect storm that's about to burst this bubble. Before we reveal which cities are most vulnerable, smash that like button and let's dive into the data that mainstream media won't show you. Bapa number 10, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan's resource-dependent economy is showing dangerous cracks. Saskatoon's housing market has been artificially propped up by resource sector jobs and speculative investment, but the fundamentals are crumbling fast. Here's what most people don't realize. Saskatoon's population growth has stagnated at just 0.8% annually, while housing supply continues to flood the market. The city's median home price of $420,000 represents a staggering 8.2 times the median household income, far above sustainable levels. The potash and uranium industries that drive Saskatchewan's economy are facing global headwinds, with major layoffs already announced for 2025. When resource jobs disappear, housing demand evaporates overnight. We've seen this pattern before in Alberta during the oil crash, and Saskatoon is following the same trajectory. Young professionals are leaving for Toronto and Vancouver, leaving behind an aging population that can't support current price levels. What makes this particularly concerning is the oversupply of new construction. Developers, betting on continued growth, have created a pipeline of 15,000 new units hitting the market over the next 18 months. With demand weakening and supply surging, we're looking at a potential 25 to 30% price correction by the end of 2025. But this is just the beginning of our countdown. Number 9, Windsor, Ontario. Windsor's cross-border economy is about to become its biggest weakness. Most investors see Windsor as a bargain play, cheaper than Toronto, but still in Ontario's golden horseshoe. This thinking is about to cost them dearly. Windsor's economy is dangerously dependent on the auto sector and cross-border commerce, both facing unprecedented disruption in 2025. The shift to electric vehicles is devastating traditional auto manufacturing jobs, with Ford and General Motors announcing significant restructuring that will hit Windsor hardest. But here's the kicker nobody's talking about. Changes to U.S. immigration and trade policies could severely impact the cross-border workers who make up a significant portion of Windsor's housing demand. Current home prices averaging $580,000 are completely disconnected from local wages, which average just $52,000 annually. This 11-to-1 ratio is unsustainable by any measure. The city's proximity to Detroit, once seen as an advantage, is becoming a liability as Detroit's own economic struggles spill across the border. Windsor also faces a unique demographic challenge. It has one of Canada's oldest populations, with baby boomers beginning to downsize en masse. This demographic shift, combined with younger residents fleeing to Toronto for better opportunities, creates a perfect storm for housing demand destruction. The automotive capital's glory days are numbered, but our next city faces even bigger challenges. Number 8, St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. The oil boom is officially over, and St. John's is about to pay the price. St. John's represents one of the most dramatic boom-bust cycles in Canadian real estate history. During the offshore oil boom, average home prices skyrocketed to $380,000. Astronomical for a city with limited economic diversity. Now, with oil projects canceled and major employers downsizing, the house of cards is collapsing. Here's the shocking reality. St. John's has lost over 15,000 jobs in the energy sector since 2020, and another 8,000 cuts are planned for 2025. When the primary industry supporting your housing market disappears, prices don't gradually decline, they crater. We're already seeing early signs with homes sitting on the market for 200+ days, unheard of during the boom years. The province's crushing debt burden means no government bailout is coming. Newfoundland and Labrador has the highest per capita debt in Canada, limiting any ability to stimulate the economy or support the housing market. Young professionals are leaving in droves. The province has seen net outmigration for 5 consecutive years. What makes St. John's particularly vulnerable is its geographic isolation. Unlike other struggling cities that can attract commuters from nearby markets, St. John's stands alone. When the local economy fails, there's nowhere else to turn. But if you think Atlantic Canada has it bad, wait until you see what's happening in the prairies. Number 7. Regina, Saskatchewan. The government town that forgot it's still just a government town. Regina's housing market has been living in a fantasy, with prices rising 180% since 2005, despite minimal population growth and limited economic diversification. The reality check is coming fast and hard in 2025. As Saskatchewan's capital, Regina benefited from government expansion and resource sector spillover effects, driving median home prices to $420,000. But here's what the cheerleaders won't tell you. Government employment is about to contract significantly as fiscal pressures mount. Saskatchewan faces a $1.2 billion deficit, forcing cuts to public sector jobs that form the backbone of Regina's economy. The city's demographics tell a terrifying story for housing demand. Regina has one of the highest average ages in Western Canada, with baby boomers beginning to downsize while millennials migrate to larger centers. The university-educated youth that every city needs to thrive are leaving at alarming rates. University of Regina graduates have a 60% outmigration rate within 5 years. Regina also suffers from massive oversupply, with developers treating the city like the next Calgary during the boom years. Thousands of new units are completing just as demand evaporates, creating a buyer's market that will persist for years. The harsh winter climate and limited cultural amenities make Regina a tough sell for mobile professionals, especially as remote work reduces the need to live in government centers. Government paychecks can't prop up a housing market forever, and our next city proves that even tech booms can go bust. Number 6. Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario. The tech bubble is bursting, and Canada's Silicon Valley is about to feel the pain. Kitchener-Waterloo positioned itself as Canada's innovation hub, attracting tech companies and driving housing prices to unprecedented levels. Average home prices now exceed $850,000, completely detached from local fundamentals and about to come crashing down. The tech sector that drove KW's growth is imploding. Major employers like BlackBerry never recovered from their smartphone failure. Google canceled expansion plans, and dozens of startups have closed or relocated. The University of Waterloo's co-op program, once a pipeline for local tech talent, now primarily feeds Silicon Valley and Toronto, draining the region of its best minds. Here's the brutal math. KW home prices require household incomes of $200,000 plus to be affordable, but the median household income is just $85,000. This gap sustained itself during the tech boom through speculative investment and loose lending, but both forces are reversing rapidly. The region faces unique challenges as a mid-sized market trying to compete with Toronto for talent and investment. As hybrid work becomes permanent, tech workers are choosing Toronto's amenities or smaller cities' affordability over KW's awkward middle ground. Interest rate sensitivity is extreme in KW, with over 70% of recent buyers using variable rate mortgages. As rates remain elevated, mortgage renewals will force mass selling, flooding an already oversupplied market. Tech promises couldn't save Silicon Valley North, but our next city shows that even being close to Vancouver isn't enough. Number 5. Abbotsford, British Columbia. Vancouver's overflow market is about to overflow in reverse. Abbotsford became the poster child for drive until you qualify housing strategies as Vancouver buyers pushed further east seeking affordability. With average prices now exceeding $950,000 for detached homes, the affordability they sought has vanished, and the correction will be brutal. The city's economy depends heavily on agriculture and manufacturing, sectors facing severe headwinds in 2025. Rising labor costs, supply chain disruptions, and climate challenges are forcing agricultural operations to consolidate or relocate. The manufacturing base, primarily food processing and light industry, can't support the inflated housing costs that speculative buyers created. Abbotsford's transportation infrastructure is failing to keep pace with growth, making the commute to Vancouver increasingly unbearable. The Coquihalla Highway closure and ongoing reliability issues have made many reconsider the drive until you qualify strategy, especially as gas prices remain elevated. Here's the demographic time bomb. Abbotsford attracted many first-time buyers, stretching their finances to the maximum. As mortgage rates reset and payments increase dramatically, forced selling will accelerate. The city has one of the highest debt-to-income ratios in BC, making residents extremely vulnerable to economic shocks. The foreign buyer exodus from Vancouver is creating a downstream effect in Abbotsford, as speculative investment that drove rapid price appreciation reverses course. Distance from Vancouver won't protect buyers when the fundamentals don't add up, and our next city prov is that resource wealth is no guarantee. Number 4. Red Deer, Alberta. Alberta's oil heartland is about to face harsh reality. Red Deer positioned itself as the perfect compromise between Calgary and Edmonton, attracting oil and gas professionals seeking smaller city living with big city salaries. That equation is about to be destroyed as the energy sector continues its structural decline. Current median home prices of $480,000 might seem reasonable compared to other markets, but they're catastrophically overvalued for Red Deer's fundamentals. The city's economy revolves around oil and gas services, petrochemicals, and agriculture, all facing severe headwinds in 2025. Major employers are consolidating operations in Calgary and Edmonton, leaving Red Deer as a costly middle option with fewer opportunities. The city's population growth has stalled as young professionals bypass it entirely for larger centers with more diverse opportunities. Here's what makes Red Deer particularly vulnerable. It lacks the economic diversification of Calgary or Edmonton while maintaining similar housing costs. The city can't compete with rural Alberta for affordability or urban centers for amenities, creating a devastating middle ground trap. The demographic profile is aging rapidly, with baby boomers beginning to downsize while millennials leave for opportunities elsewhere. New construction continues despite weakening demand, creating oversupply that will persist for years. Red Deer also faces unique climate risks, with extreme weather events becoming more frequent and costly, impacting both property values and insurance costs. Even oil money can't save a city without fundamentals, but our top 3 cities face even more severe challenges. Number 3. Moncton, New Brunswick. The Maritime's boomtown built on government subsidies and temporary foreign workers. Moncton marketed itself as Atlantic Canada's growth story, attracting investment and driving housing prices up to 20% since 2015. But this growth was artificial, built on government incentives and temporary programs that are ending in 2025. The city's economy depends heavily on call centers, distribution hubs, and government services, all vulnerable to automation and cost-cutting. Major employers received significant subsidies to locate in Moncton, but these deals are expiring, and companies are already announcing relocations to lower-cost jurisdictions. Moncton's median home price of $350,000 seems modest until you realize the median household income is just $58,000. This 6-to-1 ratio is unsustainable and was only possible through speculative investment from other provinces seeking affordable real estate. The temporary foreign worker program that drove population growth is facing major restrictions in 2025. These workers, primarily in service and agriculture sectors, created artificial housing demand that disappears when programs end or workers move to larger centers. New Brunswick's fiscal situation is precarious, with an aging population creating massive healthcare and infrastructure costs while the tax base shrinks. Government employment, a major economic driver, will contract significantly as the province struggles with budget pressures. The demographic cliff is particularly steep in Moncton, with baby boomers retiring while young graduates leave for opportunities in Halifax, Toronto, or out west. Government largesse can't create sustainable growth, and our number 2 city shows what happens when boom turns to bust. Number 2, Kelowna, British Columbia. The retirement paradise that priced out its own economy. Kelowna represents everything wrong with Canadian housing markets. Spectacular natural beauty driving prices completely disconnected from local economic reality. With average home prices exceeding $1.1 million, the city has created an unsustainable bubble that's about to burst spectacularly. The Okanagan's economy traditionally relied on agriculture, tourism, and retirees, but housing costs have made these sectors unviable. Service workers can't afford to live where they work, creating labor shortages that are forcing businesses to close or relocate. The tourism industry is particularly vulnerable as labor costs skyrocket while visitor spending remains flat. Here's the hidden crisis. Kelowna attracted massive speculative investment from Vancouver and international buyers treating real estate as a commodity rather than housing. This speculation created artificial scarcity and drove prices beyond any reasonable relationship to local incomes. The retirement boom that drove growth is reversing as fixed-income seniors find themselves unable to afford the property taxes and living costs their own investments created. Many are selling and relocating to more affordable markets, increasing supply just as speculative demand evaporates. Climate change poses unique risks to Kelowna's appeal, with wildfire seasons becoming longer and more severe. Insurance costs are skyrocketing, and several neighborhoods are becoming uninsurable, creating a 2-tier market that's unsustainable. The tech sector that some hoped would diversify the economy has largely failed to materialize, as high living costs make it impossible to attract talent compared to more affordable alternatives. Paradise Lost becomes paradise unaffordable, but our number 1 city faces the perfect storm. Number 1, Halifax, Nova Scotia. The Atlantic bubble is about to burst in spectacular fashion. Halifax takes the top spot because it combines every vulnerability plaguing Canadian housing markets while lacking the economic fundamentals to support current prices. This isn't just a correction waiting to happen, it's a complete market reset. During the pandemic, Halifax became the darling of interprovincial migration, with remote workers from Toronto and Vancouver driving average home prices from $280,000 to over $650,000 in just 4 years. This 130% increase occurred while local wages remained flat, creating the most unsustainable price-to-income ratio in Atlantic Canada. The remote work boom that created Halifax's housing bubble is reversing rapidly. Major employers are implementing return-to-office mandates, forcing pandemic migrants to choose between their jobs and their Halifax homes. Early data shows 40% of pandemic-era migrants are already planning to leave, creating a supply surge just as demand evaporates. Halifax's economy remains dangerously dependent on government, defense, and education, sectors facing significant contraction in 2025. Federal government downsizing, military budget cuts, and declining international student enrollment are simultaneously removing the 3 pillars supporting the local economy. The demographic challenges are severe. Nova Scotia has Canada's 2nd oldest population, with healthcare and pension costs consuming increasing portions of government budgets. Young professionals continue leaving for opportunities in larger markets, creating a brain drain that undermines long-term economic prospects. Infrastructure is failing to keep pace with the pandemic boom, creating quality-of-life issues that make the city less attractive to mobile professionals. Traffic congestion, housing quality problems, and strained public services are driving buyers to reconsider their Halifax dreams. Here's the killer statistic. Over 60% of recent Halifax home purchases required buyers to stretch beyond recommended debt-to-income ratios. As interest rates remain elevated and the economy weakens, these over-leveraged buyers will be forced to sell, creating a cascading effect that could see prices fall 40 to 50% from current levels. Halifax's perfect storm combines speculative excess, economic vulnerability, and demographic decline into the most dangerous housing correction in Canada. These 10 cities represent different aspects of Canada's housing bubble, from resource dependency to speculative excess to demographic decline. The common thread is prices completely disconnected from economic fundamentals, a situation that never ends well. What do you think about these predictions? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more real estate insights that challenge conventional wisdom. Click the bell icon to get notified when we release our deep dive into which Canadian cities will see prices rise in 2025.